Here at our test track, we're going to find out whether this 835 horsepower truck really can do 0 to 60.
So today we celebrate our name change.
Board members, if we can get you to your seats, we'd like to go ahead and get the work session started. And staff and guests, we apologize. The board's closed session ran longer than expected and really appreciate your patience and your being here with us.
Thank you.
So if you look around the table.
Let's see, do we have our quorum? Oh, Karen is here.
Yeah. You got
One, two.
Elaine, Laura Jane, Riccardi,
Do we have 7?
5. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for everyone's patience. Yeah, we do. I see them in the room.
Okay, I apologize to all our guests and staff that we're running late today. Please accept our apologies. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, it's okay, I wanted that, I've got to certify.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
In order to comply with Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia, it's necessary for the board to certify that Sims Fairfax County School Board convened a closed meeting on the 13th of December. To the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the closed meeting. Is there a motion? Moved by Ms. Marin, seconded by Ms. Corbett Sanders. All those in favor? All right, that motion is unanimous. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, so we're going to jump right into this because we're running late. I do thank everybody for working. I see students, oh my goodness, you guys are going to make me cry. We also have Linda Matthews and Bob Mitchell from the bipartisan group who's been working with us, but I'm just going to turn it over to you guys so we can get moving. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Keys-Gamara, and thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. So we're excited to be here today and have this opportunity to talk about potentially opening a new leadership program at John R. Lewis High School. And we've got a number of special guests with us to help us with the presentation today. Many folks from Lewis High School, starting with Alfonso Smith, our principal, Robert Barrow, our assistant principal, Linda Koch, our librarian, and I don't want to get the names wrong, so I am going to read them. I apologize. Mayreen Syed and Rawan Hashim. So did I do okay with that?
And it's Lisa.
Oh, what did I say?
I don't know, something like that.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I apologize for the mask here. But we're all very excited to be here. Colleen Eddy is with us as well. She's our Director of Curriculum and Instruction and has been kind of the main project lead and sponsor on this project. And then we do have some special guests in the audience as well, members of the community who've been very supportive and encouraging of this project, so we appreciate their support. So we're excited to be here today, and as you can see, we've got just a couple main objectives for this afternoon's meeting. We, of course, want to share some of the work that's been done at the direction of the board and the board request back in December of 2020. And we want to provide mostly an overview of the conceptual model that we've been developing and are proposing for this program that's really focused on civic education and leadership and the principles that really would honor John Lewis's life and legacy. And then, of course, at the end of the board discussion, we really do need some direction on our next steps as well, taking a look at the timeline that we're proposing for this particular project. I wanted to start just by reminding everybody, particularly our community members, about the origin of this project. And it seems kind of hard to believe, but it was actually just a little bit over a year ago now that Ms. Keys-Gamara brought a forum topic forward to initiate some innovative programming at Lewis High School that would really honor the legacy of John R. Lewis. and really focus largely on leadership, government, and civic education. And the board back in December 2020 supported that forum topic with one small caveat of not initiating any work on the project until the summer of 2021, given all the work and attention of the school system at that time, of course, on COVID operations and returning students for in-person learning. So we did begin work on this project really in earnest in summer of 2021, and we're here now, of course, just a few months after that, really with our first opportunity for board discussion and to share some of our thinking with not just the board, but with the larger community. And before we jump into the specific conceptual framework, I just wanted to remind folks, particularly again our community members, that this proposal really situates, I think, very nicely within the larger context of the board's commitment to developing innovative high school programming. What you see on the screen right now is an excerpt from the board's strategic plan. It was passed, of course, back in 2015. And one of the desired outcomes and strategic actions was to create a portfolio of school options that would provide more choices and more opportunities for students to really explore areas of interest that they're passionate about and better map towards career pathway opportunities. And we think that the Lewis Leadership Program would fit very nicely within this framework that the board has already adopted. So we're excited to share how that would fit within this framework. I also wanted to point out that, additionally, FCPS has a long history of providing career pathway programs. We provide innovative and specialized courses in our base schools and in our academy programs. We have 6 different academy programs, high schools that offer academies. And we have a pretty wide-ranging set of career pathways, everything from information technology, entrepreneurship, human services, health occupations, arts and communications. So we have a pretty broad array of academy offerings. And those academy courses that are open to juniors and seniors provide really unique and specialized learning experiences to students and provide a lot of great opportunities like internships, mentorships, job shadowing. So they're really impactful learning experiences for our juniors and seniors. And we believe that the Lewis program would fit kind of within this similar context and framework of specialized innovative programming. One thing I wanted to point out, though, and you can see here the location of our 6 different academies and kind of the wide range of career focus areas. You can see there everything from really cosmetology to, cybersecurity. So very broad spectrum of career pathways. But one thing I wanted to point out at the beginning of this discussion is the distinction of what we're proposing with the Lewis program and our existing academy model. And our existing academy model is, I think most folks know, it's a half-day or part-time enrollment model. So students are enrolled at their base school, and then they continue to take specialized classes for part of their day at one of the academy programs. And if they don't attend that academy, high school is their base school, then they, of course, have to drive, or we provide transportation to that location. That oftentimes can create challenges for scheduling. And we have this existing academy model for a number of different reasons. Of course, efficiency, making use of our facilities, not trying to replicate and duplicate, really expensive materials and supplies and, 26 different high schools. So we have the model for a reason. The model is under review. We currently have an external program review of our career pathways programs in our academies. The board will receive more information in the spring of this coming school year. But the main distinction that I want to draw here between that part-time academy model and the Lewis model is that what we're proposing for Lewis is a full-time enrollment model. So students would attend Lewis High School full-time to participate in these courses. And one of the reasons that we're proposing that model is it fits very nicely with the most recent innovative programming model that we opened, which is the Edison Global STEM program at Edison High School. So I wanted to share just a little bit of information about the Edison STEM model. It was initiated in 2015, and it is an interdisciplinary program, so different content areas, math, science, and humanities all integrated together in this program. And it's focused on applying and solving real-world problems. So it's based on a curriculum model that we developed with the National Academy of Engineers. And again, the main distinction for this program is it's a full-day program. It's not like our other academy programs, which again, it's open to Edison students as well as students who seek to transfer in to become full-time students at Edison High School. And that model has worked really, really well for us. Also, I wanted to point out, as you can see on the timeline here, that to develop a program that is really at the scale and magnitude of that we're talking about with the Lewis program, as you'll hear, is a multi-year initiative. There's time to develop and design the program. There's time, of course, to develop the courses, to implement those courses, and you have to scale that over time. You can't do it all at once. And it does take long-term commitment from the school division as well as additional financial support. So with the Global STEM program in mind, we want to turn now to talk a little bit more specifically about what the program for Lewis would look like. And we want to start with a brief video from the rededication ceremony just to remind everybody about some of the principles that are guiding this project. So we'll take a quick look at about a 2-minute video, if that's okay.
So today we celebrate our name change, which took place in the summer of 2020, in the midst of an unprecedented pandemic, on the heels of heightened awareness about continued social injustices. There is great power in a name.
And I am so excited as superintendent that our students will attend a school named for someone who was such a powerful and true example of leadership.
John Robert Lewis High School will serve as a constant symbol of strength, conviction, and commitment to improving the lives of our students. It will represent the importance of believing in oneself and not giving up, and of course, to never be afraid to make some noise and get into good trouble.
We will be a high school and community that's crossing over, and one that encompasses the qualities that John Lewis embodied: fearlessness, authenticity, and strength.
You, our students, this community, were brave to push for the renaming of this school. You are not content to allow the status quo to persist, and look at what you have accomplished.
Because his sacrifice, endless nights of peaceful fights for equal rights, he set his sights to be greater, to reach new heights, a mediator of black, brown, and white. And now we honor him.
When John Lewis crossed that bridge in Selma, he did it so that we could all learn to see humanity in our neighbors and to abolish the hatred that could cause blindness in this nation. It is his light that now allows us to celebrate as we consciously turn our backs on a past that only valued some, and we purposely look toward a promising future for all of us.
All right, well, yes. So congratulations to our communications team for putting together a great video that I think
All right.
captures the special ceremony
Good afternoon, everyone.
that we had that day. We're going to work on
Good afternoon.
slideshow.
All right, the mics are working. It's going to be a great program. So my name is Alfonso Smith. We're going to go ahead and get started. I first just want to ask everyone to stand for the presentation of colors and this.
Hey, good job.
You're going to be on the Tonight Show later tonight, Alfonso, with that ventriloquy.
So that concludes our presentation. I hope you enjoyed that. No, but again, a great video really capturing, I think, the essence of the specialized programming that we're seeking to open at Lewis High School. So with that, I'm happy to turn the presentation over to the real Alfonso Smith and the rest of our leadership team here.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. Just even in reflecting on that video and just reflecting back on 2020, I just think about the timeline of how so many different things happened during the course of that year. I remember saying Happy New Year on January 1st, right into January 6th, where I became principal at the time, Robert E. Lee High School. And then in March 12th, things kind of shut down with the state of emergency. So just reflecting on that, right on into April 23rd of the following year, I skipped July 23rd of 2020, where we had where you renamed our school. And then right on into that program on April 23rd of the rededication program. So there's a lot that has happened since then. I'm thankful for just so many different things. I'm proud to serve as the first principal of John Lewis High School. I'm thankful for the opportunity to serve an awesomely diverse group of students and families, along with a terrific staff and a wonderful community. Just to highlight a little bit of the uniqueness as we talk about John R. Lewis High School, I have just some numbers here about the demographics just to make sure that everybody is aware. We have an Asian population of about 25%. We have a black population of about 15%. Our Hispanic Latinx population is 45% of our school. And our white population is 15% of our school. And those numbers are rough, but they're very close to what we have. So it does speak, even in our demographics, it speaks to some of the uniqueness about our school. Our SPED population, special education needs, 16%. Our English for learners of other languages, 20%. And then lastly, the last number that I'll just share with you is our free and reduced lunch population of 53%. So I say all those numbers very proudly because that is the community that I serve. And so as I reflect on the name change that took place, one of the things that I'm grateful about, especially the courage that it took to change that name to John R. Lewis, really I think reflects the student population that I have with those demographics that I mentioned to you before. There's a lot of diversity at our school that I'm proud of. There's a lot of different needs that keeps us having to be creative and trying to find new ways to work with our population of students. But as we reflect on that, I would venture to say that there's probably not another school in Fairfax County, and being in the county for over 20 years, it's a very unique school. And I'm very proud of that school, and I am proud of the name change. It shows that as a county, we can make decisions moving forward that considers the needs of all. And that's very important to me just in being the leader of our school. Our vision is for us to continue to build bridges, to connect Lancers to their full potential, whatever that full potential happens to be. We honor all. The honor is unconditional. We want to start by honoring each and every one of our students and our families, regardless of what their backgrounds are. We educate them all, and we want to empower them all. So as I start thinking about a leadership program such as this, the things that are important to me is it really just tells me, just as a county, that we understand that name on our building was important and is important. But now that was a step. And it means a lot to me just to hear that the fact that we're having this conversation, and I know no decisions have been made quite yet, but the fact that we're still talking about John Lewis High School, that shows me that we're still invested in what's going on, not just with the name on outside of our building, but what's going on inside of our building. You know, so I'm thankful for that, and I appreciate the opportunity for us to evaluate diving deeper into our school programs. Because a decision, you know, is kind of still pending. I know it hadn't been approved, so I know no promises have been put in place, but what I was told is that I could start dreaming a little bit here. So as we're exploring, to start dreaming. So I'm gonna just share just a little bit about what some of those dreams entail for me. Those dreams entail continuing to build on the needs of our school, while at the same time building on the legacy of John R. Lewis High School. In my dreams, I see special programming at John Lewis High School. I heard at least mention of one of the other high schools in our area that has a special program. I know that there are many schools in our county that have special programs, some of which I have parents that do student transfer applications that I sign off on, where they're going to other schools for special programming. So I'd be lying if I wasn't to say I'm very excited about the fact that you're at least considering some special programming at John R. Lewis and some opportunities for students who really want to tap into the uniqueness of our building and the uniqueness of our population, that we have some options for them in the name of John R. Lewis, where the academy would be concerned. So if I'm really dreaming, this has been some of the things that I've been talking about even more recently. I mentioned that 50%, almost 50% population of Spanish speakers at our school. I still feel that we have to do some things differently as it relates to that, and I think could possibly be tied into even with this particular program. We might have some elective classes that we offer to students, and a lot of times that's going to hit that higher level student. But I also believe there might be some of these classes or some of the programming that we might have to do in Spanish. And I know a lot of the research right now says, well, for students who are coming in, they need to learn the English and they need to learn that. And I'm dreaming, so don't interrupt my dreams. If I'm dreaming, I want to figure out how can we, we try to honor our students and make sure that they have this sense of belonging. But oftentimes as they come in, we say, come on in, we want to make you feel welcome, but don't speak your native language. And that's tough for me at times, So if I'm really dreaming, I'd like to have some opportunities where we can have students and we can meet them where they are, even where their language is concerned. So how to make that happen, how we can do all of that, how we finance all of that, I don't have all those answers, but I'm still dreaming. So thank you. All right, and so we do have some students that I would like to turn the mic over to. Rawan and Marine, I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to you all. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Rawan, and I wanted to highlight what our school community is like in terms of honoring John Lewis and our name and what it specifically means to me, and on behalf of some of our students. So to me, after renaming, being at Lewis means comfort, and it means more of a sense of belonging to me, and especially to our Black and brown students. And feeling inspired to continue learning and being encouraged to create the sense of community at our school that some of our students love and are also inspired by. Projects at our school, including reading John Lewis's March series and the kind of insight and representation that it provided to our students and its impact on myself and other Black and brown students at school. So it's that exposure and awareness to not only what John Lewis and what our name means, but it's also who and what we learn about, and again, that exposure and introduction that builds upon leadership and interest in serving our community and social justice. And it would be necessary to propel and improve on this through more representation, through courses, service, opportunities, books, conversations, that exceed beyond the curriculum that we currently know, one that, and like Khadijah mentioned, on our petition, our school would benefit from through these resources that will be available to our students. And for clarity, since last year when Amanda Hurst first came about reaching out to Ms. Kuzgamar and I, we provided a voice for a potential academy and telling exactly that, and how we can approach this. And like Marine will go in depth about, of course, it's really about our students and the support of our students that comes first and is the most important step in anything our school has. So come these opportunities, I know that we will ensure everyone is considered in the process. So the inclusion of a spectrum of human rights and leadership-centered courses, and also to close the language barriers that Mr. Smith mentioned that may be present in the planning and organization of bringing this program, because at Lewis, that's what we'll do. And again, as I mentioned at my speech at our rededication ceremony, our renaming was only the first step, and like Pranav had recently mentioned, there's no better place in the county where such a program and encouragement of the introduction to increased in variety of topics, conversation, debate, and opportunity should be. And no other place where it would be as beneficial and meaningful. So pass it on to Marine.
Hello, my name is Marine, and I'm a senior at Lewis High School. I'm really grateful to be here today to share student perspectives on the Lewis Academy for government, leadership, public policy, and human rights, and to also talk about student leadership and the advocacy work at our school. So I first learned about the Academy through other students shortly after the name change of my school. I became involved in planning out what this Academy could look like this summer as I became the co-president for student government. And Lewis Academy Now, which is a group of students and community members, created a petition to the school board in support of an academy at Lewis. So recently, Rowan and I have started gathering signatures in our school on the paper version of the petition, and many of the student leaders at Lewis, including our SGA class, believe that this academy will teach us how we can pave our own path in this world, as John Lewis once did. At the moment, FCPS has an academy for things like STEM and health sciences, but we don't have anything where students can really learn to hone their leadership skills and become more global-minded. But the Lewis Academy will solve that issue and will benefit all students throughout the county that want to take advantage of the specialized programs, classes, and resources. And as Mr. Smith mentioned, our diversity at Lewis is something that is especially unique and creates students that embrace all cultures. But this also means that many of us feel like our voices don't really matter in this world. However, this academy will give us an opportunity to learn more about social justice and how we can create solutions to problems, many of which affect us every day. And since the name change, I've noticed how active and involved the students at Lewis have been, both within our school and community. So, for example, I've seen clubs like UNICEF and Key Club fundraising for water sanitation and hygiene efforts in Haiti to buy soap, masks, and vaccines. Our SGA working on a donation drive to send food and clothes to ECHO before the holiday season, and clubs like Lewis Minds Matter and Self-Love Journey that aim to destigmatize mental health. And students at Lewis have already been working so hard to improve their communities on all levels, and an academy will further teach them how they can make an effective impact. And I know I'm
going to talk about some of the groundwork that's already been laid, that's led us to today in proposing this plan. Shortly after your forum request last December, we had some preliminary discussions between the Lewis leadership team and the central office leadership team, just to kind of provide some clarity and define next steps of where we should go from there. From those preliminary discussions, I partnered with Colleen, and we started the process of getting some planning dates on the calendar for July and August. And then we assembled a planning team that represented all facets and levels of stakeholders, and a team that was willing, interested, and enthusiastic to brainstorm, research, and devise a plan that meets the needs and the best interest of our students at Lewis High School. Once we got some planning dates set and assembled the team, we did meet in July and August and got a lot of work done, meaningful work done, I believe. Along the way, we were blessed with having some outside organizations that came in and were willing and ready to support. One of those were George Mason, the Carter School at George Mason. They're already willing to come in and help with our curriculum development of our specialized coursework, along with potentially providing some on-campus exposure opportunities for our students that participate in this program. We've got the wonderful bipartisan leadership group. We've got Bob and Linda sitting back there. They pretty much have been there from the ground level. They not only participated in our planning sessions in July and August, but they literally devised a working group within their organization that has continued with the brainstorming and the researching and the planning of ways that they could support a program like this. And when I say support, I mean providing hands-on, meaningful learning experiences for students that are in this program, such as educational field trips, internships, career exposure opportunities, guest speakers. The list goes on. We also have the Lewis Academy Now group. And the unique thing about Lewis Academy now is that they're comprised of individuals that come directly from our school community. So they have a vast perspective of the type of student that attends Lewis and what they need. So they're pretty much in line with the bipartisan leadership in terms of ways that they want to support the program as well. At the completion of our planning in August, we kind of passed the baton to the central office, Colleen's central office team. At that point, they were able to tweak, fine-tune, and create a conceptual model, which is what we're presenting today, that also maintained the integrity of the work that we had completed over the summer. So here we are. So I want to introduce Ms. Lisa Koch. She's one of our wonderful librarians at Lewis High School, who's already created some programming with the help of others in the building that our students are currently engaging in right now, that's grounding them in who John Lewis is and what he stood for. So I'll let her talk a little more about that.
Afternoon. I'm going to talk about the Lewis Legacy Project, which started out of the energy and enthusiasm that our students and school community had following the renaming. A group of teachers, librarians, and curriculum coaches came together to support student learning around our name change. The purposes of the Lewis Legacy Project are to have students learn about our school's name change, to engage in community building, and for students to identify and connect to causes that are personally meaningful and to begin to take action on those causes. The Lewis Legacy Project has 3 components. The first is a school-wide reading program. The second are Advisory Service Friday lessons, and the last are inquiry-based content lessons. I'm going to talk about the school-wide reading program briefly. In all English classes this year, students began the year by reading one of Congressman Lewis's graphic novels. 9th graders read March 1, 10th graders read March 2, 11th graders read March 3, and seniors read Run, which is his his most recent and last graphic novel. These lessons gave students necessary background on John Lewis's life and also gave them an opportunity to engage in meaningful discussions on civic engagement. The Service Friday lessons are bi-monthly advisory lessons in which all advisory classes participate in Service Fridays. They're held during the first 30 minutes of advisory class, so they're quick lessons. And these lessons show students that service can be a small act and that small actions add up and that together we can make a difference. Some of the past lessons have included writing over 700 letters of thanks to veterans and first responders, which were donated to Operation Gratitude, which is a nonprofit that makes care packages. They've beautified our outdoor classroom, written over 900 notes of gratitude to FCPS teachers and staff, and that wasn't just Lewis. We sent them all over the county. Students could write to anyone that has made a difference in their life. And then folding 1,000 paper cranes, which will be on display in the library, hopefully before winter break. The inquiry-based content lessons help students build connections between core content and John Lewis and the civil rights movement. A few examples from this year are students examined historic documents and photographs in connection to reading A Raisin in the Sun in a junior IB English class. Performance assessments in social studies classes, making connections from the past and present and researching untold stories. And then the marching bands program this year was called Becoming John Lewis, and they focused on music of the civil rights era and John Lewis's favorite song, Happy. All these efforts have started bringing noticeable change to our student culture, to our school culture. I think our students definitely talked about those connections, but some of the things that we've seen are more students volunteering and discussing service. Student service hours are higher than previous years, and one sign of that is even just the library volunteers. This year we had over 60 students volunteer to work in the library and to help us, and that's over double what we normally have and before COVID, so thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing about some of the efforts underway at the school. And my job now is to just return to a couple of points that Robert made about community members who have organized to support the work at Lewis. And the Lewis Academy now is a group of parents and students and community members who are willing to support with community outreach. And we also have the Bipartisan Leadership Project, who has organized a group of over 70 career experts willing to create really intentional bridges with the nonprofit sector, government, and really create some opportunities for students. So we've been really grateful for their work, and they have been able to bring in some speakers and contacts that are really notable, including the former Chief of Staff for Congressman John Lewis and the CEO of the John Lewis and Lillian Miles Foundation. I had the opportunity to hear from the civil rights leader and friend of John Lewis, Courtland Cox, share a message of support for this work. And the working group, the external working group, has really done some research of possibilities for programming at John R. Lewis. So including things like the George Mason University's Youth Conflict Resolution Summit, internships and dialogues with civil rights leaders, field trips to the Capitol, and active involvement on campus with the Carter School of Peace and Conflict Resolution at George Mason University. Lots of opportunities for collaboration exist, and I think it's a wonderful thing that the community has come to our door willing to support this effort. Both organizations have included students as active collaborators, which has really been wonderful to see student voice in the process. So we are excited about these potential opportunities, and I also want to note some other regional efforts that have taken place in public schools to offer career pathways related to law and justice and government. So there's just 6 here that I've selected from the region. So Montgomery County Public Schools, DC Public Schools, and RICO. These are examples of schools that have elevated leadership, human rights, public policy, and government as foci for high school innovation. Next steps for planning could include consultation and visits with these schools to kind of get a sense of the variety of programming that's offered. For example, the model at Montgomery County Public Schools, Northwood High School, there's an academy of politics, advocacy, and law that aspires to help students affect positive change and empower students to become active, legally savvy contributors to society. So these students engage in specialized coursework, and they also have some key experiences along the way, including capstone projects and presentations of learning. So there are some folks in the area that we could be learning from as we engage in this work. So Robert mentioned that he and I have had the opportunity to collaborate with a group of school-based students, parents, and predominantly faculty members. I'm proposing a model, a broad conceptual model for this leadership programming. And these are just 5 areas that the working group, the school-based working group, felt really passionate about, that these are some qualities that we'd like to see in the development of the John R. Lewis Leadership Program. The first is that it ought to be inclusive, that learning experiences need to be designed to be accessible for all students, that learning experiences need to be embedded in the core curricula and also compatible with the IB program. The working group has felt passionate that the learning experiences should be experiential for kids to have the opportunity to connect with people and places beyond the walls of the school. They also felt passionate and emphasized the need for relevance, a real focus on student engagement, connections from the past and present. We heard Lisa speak about that a little earlier, some of the work that's already underway. And a focus on an ethical framework. So concepts for civic education, such as service and leadership, those can be explored across the content areas, not only in specialized coursework, but those conceptual connections across content areas. And then the last component, and this is really the basis for the model that we'll share today, is that this ought to be multifaceted, that all students at Lewis High School should have opportunities to engage in concept-based learning around leadership and service and justice and advocacy. And there should be opportunities that are increasingly specialized as students desire to explore career pathways. So this is just a graphic that is trying to help us understand the conceptual model that the school-based working group has advocated for. This big blue circle is all kids, right? And so the desire is that all kids would have the opportunity to make those connections to civic principles such as leadership, justice, service, and advocacy. And of course, this is really endemic to FCPS and our focus on the FCPS Portrait of a Graduate of Ethical and Global Citizenship. And these are opportunities to connect, to develop ethical leaders across content areas. So the working group named examples like ethical leadership in STEM courses, focus on environmental stewardship in our science courses, really elevating those concepts regardless of the content areas and for all students. That's very much aligned to the FCPS learning model, that concept-based curriculum for all kids. In addition, students at Lewis could engage in deeper and optional experiences. So these would be community and inquiry-based service learning experiences for civic education. This level of engagement would build bridges between the school and community and expose students to the wealth of opportunities that exist in the DC area. Guest speakers, summer leadership institutes, field trips, these could be options for experiential learning and service learning that are available to all students regardless of their course selections. So such special programming would give all students firsthand exposure to the impact of engaged citizenship in our democracy and some exploration, the prospect of careers in government-related fields. And then the last might be more what we had traditionally would think of when we're talking about special programming. This would be specialized coursework around civic leadership and public policy. Courses would be designed to support access to rigor and relevance for all students. That was really a passion of the working group, that these specialized courses not be reserved for particular students, but be designed to be accessible for all. Courses might include public policy, human rights, a full credit course for internship where students would have the opportunity for work-based learning during the school day. We would cultivate partnerships with universities and seek to complement and not compete with the IB program at Lewis. The school-based working group has really expressed that commitment to, again, make sure we're meeting the needs of all learners. So additional planning is definitely necessary to identify what courses really could be designed and leveraged to meet the needs and interests of Lewis students. But this tiered approach to the leadership program would ensure opportunities for all kids to engage in civic education and to expose interested students into career pathways that exist in our very special community in the DMV.
All right, well, we're bringing this presentation home, and I want to say thank you to Colleen and all the members of the Lewis High School team. I think it's very clear that a lot of work, thoughtful work has been done. There's a lot of interest and commitment on the part of Lewis High School to initiate new programming here, and a lot of opportunities, I think, to create some really unique and special learning opportunities for students. So what does that mean in terms of next steps then? And what's our current thinking about where we would go next? So of course, the first step is to do additional community engagement to really further develop the conceptual model that we presented today. We've had limited ability to be able to do that thus far. We didn't want to get too far out in front of where the board was at. And I think we're at the point now, we could really engage the community further, more faculty members at the school, students, parents, and community members to really further develop very specifically what the program standards would look like, what the course offerings would be. And then at that point, we would obviously have a lot of work ahead of us in terms of developing those materials, writing that curriculum, doing that professional development, the professional learning with staff, and getting ready to implement the program. I would say another really big piece of the work that we need to do is to enhance those partnerships. So again, we've got two great partners that we talked about today, Lewis Academy Now and the Bipartisan Leadership Program. But we need to do a lot more to really establish those community-based learning experiences, the connections with higher ed. So there's a lot of work there in terms of building those partnerships. And it takes time and it takes money to do that. So you can see here that we've developed a budget request of approximately $377,000 to be able to support this work. Largely, what that would cover is some additional staffing to lead the development of this project. So you see a program manager is listed there to really collaborate with the staff at Lewis High School and central office members to continue to do the work that these folks have been doing in their extra time, of which they don't have any. So we need to build some additional capacity there. Also, you see a request for a work-based learning teacher. That person would be, again, largely responsible for establishing those community-based learning experiences and work-based learning experiences for students. So there's a lot of outreach and capacity building that needs to happen there. Additionally, in the budget, you see a request for some additional either release time or additional compensation for extended contract time for Lewis staff members, faculty members to help with the curriculum development. Obviously, we have expertise in the C&I team, and we have community partnership expertise, but we want the teachers who will really be responsible for delivering this program to help co-develop that curriculum from the very beginning of the program. So in addition to the budget request, you can see the timeline on the right-hand side of this slide. You know, we would continue this school year to do additional stakeholder engagement. Next school year, we would initiate more of expanded learning opportunities, some of which were shared with you earlier in the presentation, but more deeply embedded and tied learning experiences into the existing courses. And then the following school year, 23-24, we would seek to initiate some of those new courses that we alluded to. And then, of course, we would continue to expand the program with additional courses and learning opportunities after that, very similar to the timeline that we used for the Edison Global STEM program. So with that, we're going to go ahead and turn it back over to our meeting managers to help us facilitate any board discussion and board questions. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that thorough presentation. We especially appreciate our students being here and our school staff members taking time out of your day. We will start to call on board members with their questions. For those of you who may have questions for the bipartisan organization, we do have a representative in the audience who can address that. Wave your hand, Linda, they're looking for you. Bob and Linda are here, but he had a Zoom call he needs to participate in. He's just in the next room, but he'll be back. All right, so we'll get started with Ms. Laura Jane Cohen.
Thank you all so much for being here. I imagine it's no accident that our Principal of the Year is here dreaming big. And thanks again, as Karen said, to Rowana Mayreem. I know this is not always the easiest format, not intimidating at all to sit here in the big crowd. You'll be well prepared for interviews in your future. But thank you all for being here. I think, you know, I was left with the overwhelming sense when we were at the rededication that you guys were at the heart of everything that was happening, the programming, everything. That's how it should be. And so I'm grateful for all you all have done. You know, there's so many things to me that are really compelling. And, you know, looking at the opportunities that so many of us have been afforded, I think about during grad school, I had the opportunity to intern with the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. And it's actually where I got to meet and know Congressman Lewis a little bit. And it changed my life. It changed me from somebody who saw themselves in a different path to somebody who wanted to be a part of government. And I'm so grateful for that. I would not ever have had that opportunity in high school. I think a lot about what Ms. Koch said about reminding us that Run is the next book in the series. So March is the beginning, just like the name change, and then there's work to be done. And so it can't just be a name change. You know, I think so much that now the real work, the whole focus of the rededication was we are becoming John Lewis. And that was so incredibly moving because how do you do that? And it's about more than just changing the name. It's about the opportunities that you afford and how we train the next generation of leaders and allow you all to have all the opportunities you need to do exactly what you're doing today, and change the board and the school system and the world and all the big dreams that we have for you. So I'm hugely supportive of this. I think the idea of having a leadership development program that is accessible to all of our students is huge. I think there's loads of opportunities for kids who academically excel. I think we struggle sometimes to find opportunities for kids to really develop and show off skills if they're not at the height of academic achievement. So I wondered if you could talk to us a little bit about how you're hoping to address access to these programs for all of our students. And maybe that's Colleen, could be Sloan.
Well, I think there's a lot of planning to be done, and I think we would be doing something, that meets our aspirations as a school division, but maybe is something that's not like something we've seen before. So I know, for example, our IB specialist has been involved in this planning, and we can propose new courses to IB that meet the particular needs of the school and can be designed so that they're inclusive, and students could be enrolled in the IB section of the course. They could be enrolled in a general education version of the course, and learning experiences can be scaffolded to meet the needs of all learners. But definitely collaboration with experts across disciplines is necessary to do something what I think could be really unique and reflect the values of FCPS. I'm open to others who might like to comment.
One idea that the working group talked about was having some courses, or at least a few, that could be co-taught, like with an English learner instructor and another teacher in the expertise, and that could be a way to provide access to more students.
I hope that we'll consider, as this hopefully comes to fruition, involving MSAOC and ACSD in ideas around how we give access to all of our kids to participate. And I'm going over my time, but I just wanted to say thank you so much to Ms. Keys-Gamara, who has been a real workhorse here and doesn't let up, and we appreciate that. It's my favorite thing about you. Thanks.
We got that recorded, right? No, I'm sorry. Okay, next we have Dr. Anderson.
Because I'm on limited time, I'm just going to say ditto to much of what Ms. Cohen has said, but I do want to just take a few seconds to say I was so moved by this opening. It really brought back and reminded us, I think, in a very, very positive way of why this is so important, and thank you to both of you. But I'm going to jump into the questions here. One of the things that you mentioned, Dr. Presidio, is that this is different from other the plan for this would be different from other academies in terms of being full-time. Edison's program is not full-time either?
No, Edison's program is full-time. So I was making the distinction between Edison and Lewis, if we open a Lewis program, and our other academies.
Okay, thank you. And then this will still be available and open to students across the division?
The transfer in, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Principal Smith, one of the things that you talked about is how many students you lose to other schools who are engaging in other programs. Can you quantify that in any way?
Well, I think that as I look at our student transfer system over time, my personal opinion is it's something that's been available to students who, I mentioned that how much we value our diversity at our school. I don't believe that everybody values that type of diversity. So there's a lot of different reasons that people share for wanting to access other programs. And right now, the way that things are set up, they're able to do that at schools outside of our school.
And that's a loaded question, because I asked that because I have the same issues in my community. I represent Mason, and there are some schools that there's intentional departures.
Yes.
I just wanted to get a sense, are we talking about 50 kids a year? Are we talking about 100 kids over the course of a few years? Because I would love to use this as a point that will give us a sense to maybe lean on the fact that we might retain those students rather than losing them to other programs.
Right, and that's one, I don't have the exact numbers with me. That's something that I can get you. I can get that data. I believe that it's decreased though over time, but I know that there's been a lot of departures over the years.
Okay, thank you so much. One of the things, Dr. Presidio, that you talked about was that there was an academy study that was being done, and that is completed, I imagine, and ready for the board to see in January, or you said the spring?
No, it's going to come probably in May as the anticipated date. Yep.
I just want to make sure that the recommendations for this development are somewhat consistent with the findings that you may have determined so far, so that we don't have to come back and kind of undo certain things.
Absolutely. Yep.
I so appreciate the regional benchmarking that you provided. I just want to make sure that I highlighted that. I think that's a good sense of offering some grounding in terms of what this program could look like. When you talked about the various levels of access, one of the things that you said, I believe, was level 1. That would be available to everyone, whether or not they're part of the academy?
That's right, because this is a conceptual model to include all students, right? So this is across core graduation requirements, even infused in existing elective courses. It's what we call concept-based curriculum. It's part of our learning model where we elevate content to connect to concepts that can transcend disciplines, time, interests. So this would be innovation across the disciplines, working with teachers to emphasize those concepts.
Okay. Do you anticipate that the students who engage all the way up to level 3 would have a different diploma, a certification of sort, which is, I think, sometimes provided with some of the academy programs?
That's definitely possible, and we have yet to explore really what that could include. But it is possible, and it is often part of the career pathways. And law and politics is actually, and government is actually one of the career pathways that's named in Virginia. And there are some certifications that are aligned to that career pathway that we could look into.
Okay. Lastly, getting down to, the super nitty-gritty, the ask for $377K for the development, is that part of this year's budget? I don't know who could speak to that.
So that will be included in the superintendent's proposed budget.
What do you anticipate would be some of the expenditures beyond this development group?
Well, again, this is the initial, budget proposal that we have to do the initial planning and curriculum development. As we get farther along in implementation and we look at, additional learning experiences and opportunities for students, there might be additional costs associated with, bringing in even more courses or, more field trips, for example, more community-based learning experiences. So there might be additional budget needs, but we think that this is sufficient for that, 4-year timeline that we've mapped out.
Do you anticipate any needs, any budgetary needs to restructure the facilities, the school? This is not science-based. I'm thinking labs are not necessarily the case, but what do you foresee?
Yeah, we don't foresee any right now. That's an excellent question, though, by the way. I really appreciate you raising that. We do need to, assuming we move forward in our next steps, we do need to work more closely to make sure that that's the case. But our initial review would not suggest that we need any facility enhancements.
Okay, and I will take my last 11 seconds just to say thank you to all of you for being here and all of the work that is being done. I will tell you, this is a piece that's being watched very closely in my community, Justice with the renaming. They're seeing this as a beacon for what could be, not just in this work, but also in the rededication. But I do want to say those were 2 different experiences of renaming, and sometimes some things have a little bit of a smoother road. So thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. I think Dr. Brabrand had wanted to make a comment, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Just super quick. First, excuse me for stepping out. I had to trade cars with my wife for transportation and winter break and boys flying in from college. So my apologies for my absence. This is an amazing day. What an amazing presentation. I simply want to say that. I know others are still going to go around. I just want to make two nuggets to what you said. The level 1 engagement that goes across the school, that's a nugget. We've done academies, but then you get at the school and the academy could be this standalone thing that just exists. So this is a nugget that's come out of this work to say the academy can infuse every kid, every classroom, even if not everybody decides to do tier 2 and tier 3. Huge nugget. And then on the budget, is it too much? Is it too little? Or is it just right? We have a lot of budget needs. Is $377,000 enough for the full dreams that Alfonso talked about? No. Academies cost a couple of $1 million a pop when you look at academies across our division. But can 377 allow dreams to continue and to actually sprout this next year? Yes, it gives us enough to really start to put some momentum behind putting these dreams into reality. So thank you, and sorry again for stepping out.
No worries. Okay, so next is Ms., I want to tell who's on board, but next is Ms. Tolan, then Ms. Omesh, Mr. Frisch, and Ms. Corby Karen, my goodness. KCS, all right.
All right.
So, Ms. Tolan.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone for being here today, and I especially love hearing from the students. Thank you for your time. I've always been a huge supporter of academy programs and innovation and education, so really, really excited to see the presentation here today and supporting this program. I did have a couple of questions. I wanted to ask about comparing this again to the Edison program. I know the Edison program, we started with 9th grade, and then we added 10th grade, and then 11th grade, and as people moved through, did all that curriculum development, et cetera. But I have a feeling that this is, are we doing that and in addition, because we're trying to offer it so broadly? Can you kind of explain the differences?
Well, it's a really good question. I think it's actually still to be determined. When we implemented the Edison program, we developed a curriculum first, and we chose to implement it sequentially like that, starting with the youngest students first. Here, we haven't initiated the curriculum development process, right? So it's hard to say, which approach we would take to implementation. Would it be grade level specific? Would it start at 9th grade and go up? Would it start at 12th grade and go back? Or would it start across all the grade levels? For the level 1 experience and the level 2 experiences, those would be things that would start across the grade levels as we've discussed them, previously. But for those distinct courses that would be level 3, we still need to determine that.
Okay, I understand that Lewis also has an AP program, so I did really appreciate the comments about making this complementary to IB. How would this affect the AP program?
I would say first, and certainly invite Alfonso, there's the full IB program at Lewis High School with some complementary AP courses that there's been a significant interest in students taking. And we wanted to ensure that students had the opportunity to take those courses at Lewis without transferring out. So, as we've talked about this program, we've really talked about, the connections with IB because that's a larger program at the school. But those level 1 and level 2 experiences, we would want those to extend to students in AP courses as well. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
No, just that I know that prior to my arrival, that one of the things that was noticed was that the data suggested that some of the folks who were transferring out were often trying to access, their reason was often to access some of the AP courses that were available at other schools. So I know there's about a handful of courses that we created at Lewis High School for students to be able to access. And I think that's played a part in some of the decrease of the departures as well. So it's not a full AP program per se, but there are some AP course offerings that students are able to access.
Okay, thanks. That makes a lot of sense. Having worked in an IB high school program, I see this as a natural fit with IB, so I'm excited to hear the work that you've been doing there. Of course, my biggest complaint about this program is that being from the Drainesville district, it's kind of far away. So I'm very interested in potential ways we might be creative for student access to some of these courses. I loved the idea of courses being offered in Spanish, given some of our populations in Drainesville. So I would just throw out maybe if there can be creativity, of course, this could be offered virtually, maybe even if students aren't full-time in the program, because I think the type of coursework that we're talking about is so important for so many students.
No, I appreciate that, and we've had that discussion as a design team as well. And I think there's transferability with some of the coursework and experiences that we would design, things that potentially could be offered in other schools as well. Is not an entire program perhaps, but as standalone, individual experiences, for example. And the other thing I would say is, one of the central challenges that we have, I think, as a leadership team right now is to try to figure out how to create greater access and opportunity to many of our programs. But just thinking about our career pathway programs right now, that's why we're doing that external study. Because we've got a model, an academy model, which has a lot of benefits to it. As I discussed previously, there's efficiency, there's financial efficiency, there's facilities efficiency with the model, but it also is limiting in terms of student access. So there's pros and cons, just like with anything. So the external study of our Pathways program is seeking to really help us understand what are some solutions to access and opportunity problems and challenges that we have for career pathways. We hope that there will be recommendations and suggestions that we could apply, not just to thinking about how to make the Lewis program more accessible to more students, but our other academies more accessible as well. So that's going to be a major, I think, goal for the board and the leadership team in the spring and next school year.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm really, as you know, looking forward to seeing that report. I guess I would just like to mention quickly, I'm sure you'll be looking at, as we move forward, monitoring interest level, who's really going to sign up for this, how do we move it forward? And then as a part of that, I would just like to say to my colleagues watching the Edison program over the years, Dr. Anderson's question about, okay, we have $377K approximately in funding this year. We're going to need funding in the following years. Edison was a lab program, so there was some issues with space and laboratory equipment and all of that as we were trying to move this program forward. So we will need to monitor that closely, and we will need to make a multi-year commitment. That, I'll finish. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Tolan. Next is Ms. Omesh.
Thank you, and thank you to our staff for presenting such an inspiring start to this work session. Especially I want to start with our students, Marine and Rowan. It's a pleasure having you guys, really, and this is the good trouble. You're contributing to part of that in your lifetime. And of course, thank you, Mr. Smith and Mr. Barrow and Ms. Koch for your hard work on this so far. And no doubt, Dr. Presidio and Ms. Eddy always on the curriculum side. I did want to point out that, the name change itself is an instructive point in history, and hopefully kids can be inspired and learn from that through this academy as one of those pieces. We often talk about student motivation, how do we get kids interested in school, and how do we help them actualize their potential and live up to it in their academics and in every aspect of their lives. And this is part of that. The kids will feel seen, the kids will feel included, that their narrative is a part of the story. And I strongly believe that this will be a change maker in terms of their student engagement within their academics and in every other aspect of schooling to help us accomplish our mission in Fairfax County Public Schools. So thank you all for your contribution to that, and thank you, Ms. Keys-Gamara, who's just stepped out for her role in bringing this forward. Just low-hanging fruit, and then I'm going to get to the more exciting pieces. Maybe I'll need to go back. For the IB piece, can there be a blended track where we can actually encourage students to excel academically even further, but incorporate these leadership courses? Just building off of what Ms. Tolan was asking.
Can we organize it that way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding sometimes in the larger community about the IB program. The IB program is designed to be accessible for all students by the IB organization.
Right.
It's not designed to be something that's exclusive, right? It's our job to make it accessible, and we need to do a better job with that. Part of, I think, our issue is communicating that more clearly to families and students, and supporting students when they enroll in the courses, and also letting them know that, you know, while the final exam, if you will, the end of year exam, can be important in earning and helping you earn college credit, you don't have to take that as well, right? So there are ways to differentiate the course, and there are certainly ways to integrate the themes and the concepts that we're talking about with this proposal into existing IB courses.
Yeah, I'd just offer that we consider even possibly a track where, you know, some of the themes that we're going to be teaching exist in IB electives maybe, right? But that might not be offered in the school just because of the selection or what's available. So that could be a way. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think, no, you're absolutely right. And that's where the curriculum mapping would come in terms of where those experiences would be within the existing IB structure and the other course structure that already exists at Lewis. So we need to do that work, just as you suggested.
Awesome, yeah, because I think we can incentivize kids to do IB and then don't want to disincentivize kids from doing the academy who want to do IB, right? That's the goal. Awesome. And then absolutely, Mr. Smith, the idea of potentially having classes in kids' languages, really being open-minded and thinking 100% supportive of that possibility. And IB helps facilitate that, right, where actually you can do the IB diploma in your native language. We just don't happen to do that in Fairfax County, but that's an option that exists in curriculum, right? I don't know, have we explored that at all, Dr. Presidio, Ms. Eddy? I know one of our schools is working towards doing it in, I think is it Spanish, but IB in their language.
We would love to do that. That's another goal area for us. It takes, of course, a certain talented instructor who's proficient in that target language as well as the content, and that's sometimes where we get tripped up. But we would love to do that, and we need to do that because we have students who would really benefit. So.
Right, and that's, I think, one of the abilities that IB provides for, perhaps, you know, that AP doesn't, but something we can look at in having kind of a global leadership outlook. I had a question on the curriculum development, and then I'm going to need to go back. But what is that process going to look like? There's obviously a lot that's going to be put together here for this. Something that honestly I would like to see in all of our schools, even if it's not in an academy. But yeah, please, if you could explain that.
I think co-design with teachers is really important, so that, you know, we're not in, you know, fourth floor of Willow Oaks, mapping things out in isolation. So I think that's the big takeaway, is working on curriculum together. And that has some kind of job-embedded professional development opportunities associated with it that we all learn best by doing. And that would equip the teachers to feel confident and inspired to enact the curriculum that's developed.
So is that on a timeline or?
Not yet. No, I think the basic timeline that we've provided today needs enhancement for sure. And we look forward to doing that and mapping out over time.
Great. That's my time, but
yes,
I will need to go back. You know that. Thank you.
Ms. Somesh. Dr. Brabrand, did I see you wave your finger?
I'm good.
Okay. Next, we have Mr. Frisch.
Thank you. Obviously, first, I want to thank Rowan and Miriam for being here. I know it's always fun to have older people telling you how much they respect you and how different it was back in our time, right? But I will say, my experience as a high school student, I had no inkling of what I wanted to do with my life. I know some people feel like they know what they're going to do and then they end up doing it, until a journalism teacher told me about a program through the YMCA called Youth in Government, which was a model legislature and court program. And they taught public speaking and how to write legislation, at least from a rudimentary level, how a bill becomes a law with all the different facets of it, not just the Schoolhouse Rock version of reality. You met lawmakers and you talked to lobbyists and you talked to, and then at the end of the year, we'd go up to the state capitol and play like we were real policymakers. And that informed the future of my life. I went into work on public policy because that's where my passion was. And that never would have happened. It's certainly not in the way that it did had I not been exposed to those kinds of experiential learning opportunities. And so to hear Principal Smith talking about how excited he is to be thinking beyond, and thinking into the future, me too. Like, I think of, what we could be doing to connect the schools in activities around the things that we're teaching. Whether it's having summits at Lewis that bring students from around the county to talk about public policy or to talk about even just school issues. There's no end to the great things that could come from this. And so, not the least of which is the ability for us to draw on regional talent. Where we are situated gives us a unique opportunity to have incredible people taking part in whatever it is that we end up moving forward with. And so the whatever it is that we end up moving forward with, I think this presentation does a very good job of laying out what's been done thus far and what the next steps are. I appreciate the timeline. It is aggressive, I think, to pull this all together, and I think that's a good thing because, we've got students at Lewis who are chomping at the bit to get involved here and to be a part of this. So, it is not lost on me that many students were chomping at the bit to get the name changed, and they weren't there when it happened. It'd be great if the students who are advocating for this are able to take part in it in some way. And finally, I do want to thank Ms. Keys-Gamarra and the community for the work they've done to keep this issue on the front burner and to make sure that it is well thought through and that we have significant detail to discuss as a board. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frisch. Next, we have Ms. Sizemore-Heiser.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you. And I will start with where Mr. Frisch left off, and just thank you, Ms. Keys-Gamarra, for really taking the time to reach out to all of us and talk to us individually about our questions and comments to make sure that our questions and comments were answered. So I really appreciate your diligence and your time in sort of coming together, and I appreciate staff and all of you for coming here and sharing your enthusiasm and excitement and ideas. As someone who majored in political science and economics, right, and got interested in it the day I was selected at my high school to go shadow a congressperson for the day or a politician for the day, who actually at that time was Dianne Feinstein, because I was in California. I know it was very cool. I totally appreciate and understand from a personal level the value in some of these experiential learning and the value of growing civic leaders. So I had just a couple questions. If I understood, similar to Edison, students who want to access this either are at Lewis or can transfer fully to Lewis. So
That's correct, yeah.
okay. So if a student somewhere else wanted to really be part of the Lewis Academy, similar to choosing AP or IB, if they don't have one at that school, they would be provided transportation as well?
No, I don't believe they'd be provided transportation. They'd have to provide their own transportation.
Okay, so they would be able to, it's almost like a pupil placement.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to kind of get an idea of how that access would be. The other question I had is, I love the concept of being inclusive and the different levels, right? So it's embedded for all students at different levels, whether it's embedded in the core curriculum, but then also having specialized classes for those who want to sort of delve deeper into the academy. But I'd like to dig a little more deep into what you mean by inclusive. How is this going to be scaffolded for the team taught classes or the small group classes? So students who are special education students, I mean, I'm sure you're aware, there's a lot of civil rights movements on the parts of people with disabilities, and some have said that's kind of the next major civil rights movement. So it's important to grow leaders who have that experience and knowledge. So how would it be scaffolded for those classes?
Absolutely something that we need to work on and work toward. And I don't know that I have particular answers today. I do know that a lot of times we think about the key learning experiences that students would want to and need to be a part of, and designing tasks as students learn by doing, and being able to provide differentiation within the task, not only to students' interests, but also into the kind of level of of rigor, right?
I appreciate that, and I absolutely would not expect you to have details at this stage, so I hope I don't want my question to be taken that way at all. So I appreciate. What I want to make sure of is that as you are going forward in this planning, if that's where you end up, that there's intentionality around that inclusivity, right? I find very often, and this has been my own child's experience, that we have a deficits focus when we look at students with disabilities, and we don't have sort of a strengths focus, and we don't have an inclusivity in leadership. And I think that's changing, but I think I just want to make sure that I put this on the table, that there's intentionality of being inclusive to grow leaders who have experiences, whose voices need to be at the table also.
Yeah, and I think that you're bringing up a very important point. And I think that as we spoke earlier about the co-planning, I could tell you where my staff is concerned for the folks that we've started having these conversations with. When you have in your vision that all means all, they kind of bring that up in different ways. You know, there's pressure that comes with that. And often what comes to mind as we talked about this, some of the concern was, you know, hey, look, this is going to be attractive to other schools, you know, but one of the things that, as we talked about it amongst our staff, the people who we have spoken to, is they really want to make sure with the diversity that we have in our building, and as I pointed out earlier, our special education population being part of that, that when we talk inclusivity, they really want to make sure that we're designing this as we start to plan this out, that we don't leave some of the diversity that we have in our building behind, but that we keep them under consideration as we're in our planning as well.
With my 9 seconds, I would just encourage that the special education department be a big part of that planning, as well as ensuring that IEP goals are inclusive of these growth opportunities. Thank you.
I was enjoying my birthday present. Okay. Next we have Ms. Corbett-Sanders.
Thank you, and I want to thank all of our speakers and our students for being here today. And I also want to personally thank both Ms. Keys-Gamarra, who has been a champion for this since Lewis was renamed. And I want to also take the opportunity to thank Ms. Daranack-Koufax, because Ms. Daranack-Koufax has been impassioned about ensuring that we have good programming at Lewis to ensure that every child's needs and expectations and the promise of success is realized in that building. And it's much of the work that you have done and you, Ms. Keys-Gamarra, in really recognizing that focus that I very much appreciate and have enjoyed participating in some of those conversations, especially when we thought about bringing in the AP programming there and meeting with the community. So that's, having said that, I will have a couple of comments. One is that I like that this is different than the Edison Academy or the Edison program, in that it goes throughout the building versus having the potential of really having a subset of the building or segregation within the building. So I think that that is really important to see happen. I also think that it's really important to have that deeper learning and inclusivity across the building and with all students and not just a subset. So I like that it is a multi-tiered approach. I will tell you that I am a little concerned about the, and I also, before I go on, the timing for this is now, because we all know that an investment in civics and leadership across this country is critical, and that as our communities change, that we want to make sure that everybody sees themselves as a leader and the potential of doing government and civic duty and civic service. Couple of questions. One, $377,000 includes staffing of hiring a couple of people. I am cognizant that we have a challenge in hiring people right now. So is your backup plan to work more closely with GMU to help do some of that programming? That's my first question. And then the second is, in addition to the policy arena and those workforce experiences, I would hope that we would look at some of the experiences for local government partnerships as well. And I'll stop with that, if I can get those two questions.
Well, I think those are excellent points. And first, I would say, you know, hiring is always a process. You never know how long it's going to take to find the right person, right? And we know that hiring is more difficult now than it's been previously. That being said, we are pretty confident that we'll be able to identify individuals for these leadership positions, and the work will not be delayed while we wait to hire the positions. We have a team who's already working on this, but we need the additional leadership and capacity for that team to do the work well. Members of that team, as you point out, include faculty at George Mason University who we've been meeting with since the summer. So there are other individuals with a lot of expertise that will be part of this work, and it's not totally dependent on hiring these new positions. And then perhaps most importantly is the focus on local government, and the opportunities there are substantial. We've had some conversations with some of our supervisors, like Supervisor Lusk, who are very interested in this program and working with students. And so we're excited about not just the state and federal opportunities, but the local government opportunities as well. So thanks for pointing that out.
And finally, Ms. Umesh asked the question about a separate diploma. I believe that there is a civic seal, and I would hope that every child or every student who goes through this program would be able to achieve that seal at a minimum.
Thank you, Ms. Corbett-Sanders. Ms. Pekarsky?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I mean, it is exciting, and like others have said, I would have loved to have a similar type of program available to me in high school. And what you said, Ms. Corbett-Sanders, yeah, I don't think there is enough civics education that could be provided these days. So, yeah, got to highlight that, absolutely. Yeah, I think most of my questions have really been answered. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting. It's a new program, and this will in no way help my district or my students, but that doesn't mean that it's not a wonderful opportunity for kids who are way on the other side of this district in Lee, and I'm excited for them and for that. I think I guess at this point, I would just, want to put a plug in for my advocacy of something you have brought up and others have brought up. Really, how are we going to include all of the students at Lewis who have, such differing needs, especially those ELLs that have, I mean, you have many in your student population, and how do they fit into this? How will they be able to benefit and be included? And you are all the professionals, so I look to the ways that you will be doing that. But I do want to put that plug in for that advocacy to be considered. I like this full-time approach. I find that very exciting, and maybe a model for some other things that we could possibly do. I know Ms. Tolan and I have had some discussions, but that's for another day and time. In terms of the expenditure of funds, do you see in this timeline, maybe do you have any projections as to when you would think we would need more money put into the budget for this? Or would you be coming back to us? How do you kind of foresee that, the expansion piece?
Well, I mean, I think we have to look at it on an annual basis. I think we would probably have these expenditures on an annual basis for the next 3 fiscal years, and at that point, we would need to have further discussion if there was a need for an expansion of funds, depending on the scope and scale of the project.
Okay, that's helpful information. I don't think I realized that from the slides. Okay. Thank you to all of you for being here, and of course, thank you to our students. You're very brave, and you had wonderful presentations. I was impressed, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pekarsky. Next, we have Ms. Marin. If I can just have a time check. We started about 37 minutes late, so if it's okay with everybody, we'll try to wrap this up by 1:30. and have our lunch at that point and kind of keep it right at 30 minutes past our time. But if we can, we'll see what happens, but I'm just proposing that. Okay, thank you, Ms. Marin.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and being away from your school. So look, I want to get to yes for this program for Lewis, but I'm also thinking bigger and for other schools. I think that all students deserve a concept-based curriculum. I think that's an evolution from project-based learning that we've done. I first saw this in expeditionary learning. I know it's done in Arlington in one of their schools. It costs a lot of money to do that. But, you know, there are other communities in our schools that need this kind of learning, and all kids deserve it. So just to be clear, again, I'm sorry if you said this, I believe you have, but all students would be enrolled in this program at Lewis, is that right?
Yeah, so the program would be available to all students. So all students would have level 1 participation. That's where we would integrate some of the curricular work into existing courses. All students would have access to participate in those level 2 experiential opportunities, community-based learning, internships, job shadows, those types of things. And then all students would have the ability to select to take some of those elective courses if they were interested in going deeper.
Okay, so, you know, I think the merit and the motivation is clear about why Lewis and why now. And Principal Smith, I'm glad to have you here today. I've been eager for your participation as well as to hear from the students. So I see this as an opportunity for innovation, and we're known for innovation, and so I think that's exciting, and we should grasp it. You know, Dr. Presidio, you mentioned transferability, and again, that's where I'm getting at. And so what's unclear to me is, what are the school division's criteria for planning an academy program? Can you speak to that, please, for where to place an academy program?
So I've been here 10 years, and we've only opened one, and this would be the second one, academy-type programs, the Edison program and this program if we do it. And that's largely been due to constrained fiscal resources, to be honest with you. You know, it's been in the strategic plan since 2015 that we want to try to design more innovative learning experiences at the high school level for students. We just haven't really had the financial resources and the staff capacity to do that. So the process really would be working, I think, with the board to identify strategically and intentionally programmatic areas that might be missing. So for example, when the career pathways study comes back, it will do an analysis of our existing career pathways versus kind of other national models of career pathways and provide the board with information about areas where maybe we might need to improve access and opportunity. That would be an opportunity for the board to say perhaps we might want to strategically and intentionally think about opening a program, and I'm not even going to insert what that program might be, in a particular career pathway, and then we'd work together to develop a budget and a timeline to do that. So I think that's a real opportunity for this board to realize, I think, some of the individual passions and collective commitment to trying to do that. And we'll have the opportunity to have that conversation in the spring.
Okay, well, thank you. And it's unfortunate that the timing now, or maybe the timing will align well with the career exploration. And as the liaison to the Career Tech Advisory Committee, we're actually going to visit our academies in January. And, you know, this is part of a much bigger conversation for me in strategic planning about how we're doing all this. I mean, for the representative from Hunter Mill, we have no academies at the high school pyramids that are located in Hunter Mill, not at South Lakes or Madison. Doesn't mean we don't have innovation, but what is, you know, I'd be hard pressed to think anyone from my district is going to get over to Lewis. And I have students who are advocating for this kind of social justice oriented work. So, you know, I think as a steward of the public's funds, you know, it's fair to me to ask, you know, Dr. Brabrand and perhaps Mr. Smith, what doesn't get funded if this is included in your budget proposal? Would it be the IB program? Let me just offer this before you answer. You know, I just looked up quickly our FY21 budget question number 39 on page 46 says we had increased just some contractual costs for IB across the division of 0.8 million. In FY22, a budget question, number 42, was asked about the fees for IB and AP exams. We pay for up to 6 of each across the division. Together, that amount is $3.4 million. Are we going to keep paying for IB at Lewis? Lewis, so that's IB, AP, Leadership Academy program. So my question to you is, what doesn't get funded if this is included in your budget proposal?
Well, I do plan to include this as an additional part of my budget, depending on the conversation that happens today. It is, in my view, the right step. Honestly, I think this is perfect timing. This is innovation now that can help even our consultant and help you all think about when we receive the consultant report in the spring about how do we go larger. Something you and several other board members have already talked about, this concept-based curriculum that's universal access. Right? The old academy model was, here's the academy, it's a subset of the school, and it's selectivity to get in. So I think there's real pieces here. There's nothing stopping us today from supporting this leadership government approach at John Lewis and thinking this could be good at many additional schools than just one part of our huge county. So I think it's the beginning of the conversation, not an end. And I'm hopeful, again, we're getting bits and pieces from the state budget right now. The governor just released some more information about his budget today, if you all are watching, that we're going to get the support we need to be able to fund this. And again, $377,000 is not the multi-million-dollar investment of a full-blown academy, but I think it's enough to begin to allow the seeds of the dreams to actually sprout and begin to blossom. And we'll have a chance in the spring when that full consultant report to come out to talk about a multi-year process. And then at that point, there may need to be some trade-offs. There may need to be, if we're going to go completely county scale with some of this revision, how are we going to do it? Thanks.
Okay, I receive your answer. I also think just programmatically too, if you're a student at Lewis, so how do you navigate IB, Portrait of a Graduate content, new academy content? There's a lot there that we want to make it seamless, and I see some areas that could be duplicative. So
no, that's it. We've got to make it seamless. We want to put all of that in and not feel like the kids are jumping through hoops, but they're getting all those experiences at once. And it is the right pivot coming out of the pandemic to return to Portrait of a Graduate, to return to the presentations of learning work. That's where kids get excited, teachers get excited, principals get excited. We need to look at the baseline data around our assessments that we've given out, but we also need to pivot back to the excitement of the in-person classroom with innovation, excitement, and empowerment in the classroom, and I think this proposal is going to do that.
Okay, thank you. Did anybody else, did anybody else on the panel want to, Colleen? Ms. Eddy?
I'll just add that the way I see those components, they're aligned rather than competing. And sometimes we might have more challenges taking a particular discrete piece of content and figuring it out how it fits. But leadership and human rights, these are aligned very much to the values of Portrait of a Graduate, to those skills and attributes. It's aligned to IB. This is really an opportunity to make concrete those promises that we've made through Portrait of a Graduate. So I'd see it as alignment rather than competing interests.
Thank you. Ms. Dearneck Colfax.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. I thank you for your passion, and I thank you for your support of this work. I've worked with many of you personally through the years, so thank you for all of this. I do just want to speak a bit to history and answer and try to just help solidify questions that Dr. Anderson and Ms. Tolan had talked about. I think it needs to be noted that even well prior to my arrival on the board, which is a while now, there had been challenges with transfers from this school, and various superintendents, Dr. Garza, Dr. Lockhart, regional assistant superintendents, Dr. Ivy, Terry Day, Dr. King, and everyone, Sloan and your team, you have actually worked with citizens, students, former principals to change curriculum. I'm talking meetings one-on-one in libraries with citizen groups for years now to make this happen, because it is a unique school with a unique population. When I was doing a visit with Dr. Garza. We found about the challenges of the ESOL community, and we went there and we talked about that, and that was the launch there with what is now Justice High School. We worked to address that community. Then we heard from another part of the community that says, my child isn't getting the rigor that they need, so we added AP courses, things like multivariable calculus, things like that. So so we added AP courses to the IB curriculum, and this was done with a great deal of community engagement and student engagement, as well as the team, Sloan and his team that are up there now. So thank you all for that. So I appreciate all the hard work that has been done to meet the creative demands of a very diverse school community. Personally, I've supported a school here in Fairfax that offers particular programming. Sloan, you and I have talked about this a long time, on government, leadership, policy, and civic engagement that offered real-life, hands-on experience, as we have such unique opportunities here with our proximity to DC. Unfortunately, prior to this time, there's been little support for this. So I appreciate my colleague, Ms. Keys-Gamarra, and the community that brought this forward and the momentum that it has gained. I thank you again all for your support and hard work to add this additional creative programming to meet the needs of John Lewis High School and the momentum that it will take on with the name change. So now is the right time. Lewis is going to continue. It is in the heart of my district. It is something that I am passionate about. It is something that has definitely had unique needs, but I think every time there was a struggle, we went forward and tried to meet these unique needs. I think this is another step in that progress. So I am excited to have this programming launch, to grow. I'm hearing support from this board, so I look forward to working with the community that's already engaged, the schools, you, Alfonso, your whole team, and all of you who have been there from the start of this name change, and to move forward and to ensure its success. So thank you all for being here. I have no questions. I have been fully involved, making sure I hear everything that's going on out there. I appreciate the hard work, and I look forward to this new adventure here at Lewis High School and this academy, and the new unique way it's going to be launched. So we'll see. In some ways, it is a pilot of sorts, the way it's being launched. So I look forward to that. And Dr. Presidio, I'm still not going to give up on a similar programming with the arts somewhere.
Nope, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss that in the spring, and thank you for your support and partnership on this project so far, and you've been such a great advocate for the Lewis community and school for so many years. We look forward to continuing to work with you as we bring this to fruition, so thank you.
As of you all, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Dernack Kofax. Next, we have Ms. McLaughlin.
Great, thank you. I had the benefit as a meeting manager to get a preview of this, and want to thank Sloan and Ms. Eddy in particular. The way in which you enriched the slides and brought more information to it was really helpful, especially the slide on all of the academy programs that we have. Right out the gate, I'm just going to say I was supportive when Ms. Keys-Gamarra brought this forward as a forum topic. I remain enthusiastic about the program. I think it's exceptional. And for many of us sitting around the table, we've been active leaders in our community since we were in grade school and high school and college and all of that stuff. So this is really important. In terms of, for me, it's always about the execution. So the idea, I'm all in. The execution, I just want to understand it a little bit better, because I don't want to have Dr. Braburn come back and say, well, I thought that you guys were all kosher with it, and I didn't know you had concerns. Dr. Braburn also knows I'm a data girl, so I kind of flinch a little bit when I hear things being said without the data to lead it and substantiate it. So Dr. Braburn, I would ask as a next step that your team be a little more clear about when you say something's a multi-million-dollar cost to raise up an academy. We can't be sitting here having you say that and not know what that really meant, because we're talking about $320,000 or $377,000. That would be my one next step request. Second one is, I do think we need a little more delineation on the 377. That's per year. I think it's reasonable for the board to just understand how many positions are we actually talking about, how much is to the consulting costs. We put a lot of scrutiny on this system for a good reason, and we need to know those numbers a little better. To Ms. Marin, thank you about equity of opportunity. In the Braddock District, we don't have anything amazing like this. And so I look forward to the report in May, because we've got to get better equity. In terms of pupil placement model versus the academy model, and so when transportation is provided or not, I would ask that the superintendent work with the board members on this. That gives me pause, because I want equity here as well. I don't know why that program would be closed off to transportation if we give transportation to other academy programs. And then just looking at my other notes on this. Last one in my 17 seconds. We live in a society that for generations has not been taught to have respectful civil discourse with opposing views on complex issues. I'm begging you to embed this in here. It's not just about the legacy of advocacy, it's the legacy of having a more civil society. And so I hope that will also be built in. And there's my time.
Thank you. We will spend.
Do they have any responses to my questions on cost and pupil placement? And I mean, I asked a lot of questions, and so I want to know which ones they can answer now.
Okay.
Dr. Presidio, it looked like you wanted to, I think we laid out some of the position of the 377 on slide 19, and it looked like you had your hand to make another point or two, and maybe
Well, yeah,
I'll
I
follow
mean,
up.
I can delineate the cost further, and we can send that as an update to the board. Additionally, I think you asked some questions about, the cost for academy programs. I think what Dr. Brabrand was referring to is, when we talk about a program that has significant facilities, capacity costs, for example, we had to remodel, just for Edison, a classroom into a lab. That was $700,000 in terms of a facility upgrade. And then when you think about the academy models, where you're bringing hundreds of students in from another school, there's additional staffing costs that goes into that. So that's how those figures are calculated in terms of being pretty expensive. But we can certainly give you more information on that too.
And then why, to the transportation piece, why is it going to be different than our academies to provide busing to and from?
So if that was something that the board wanted us to change in terms of our policy, we could. We're not providing transportation for pupil placement right now. And that's the issue, because we have a lot of students that pupil place from one school to another for a variety of different reasons, some curricular, some others. And we don't have the transportation capacity to be able to provide that for all of those students.
Well, just for clarity, Dr. Presidio, I'm talking about, we have 6 academies in existence that you guys listed on that slide. Is there transportation provided to all of those students? Because if so,
Yeah, there is transportation for the academy program, so that's what I was kind of getting at. If the board wanted us to kind of carve a different definition of transportation for this particular program, that's something we could work with the facilities and transportation team on.
Thank you.
Okay, I think everybody had one round. I think we're trying to stay on time as close as we can. But I'd certainly, if you need to have a go back, we can put you in the queue. And I haven't spoke, but I just want to make sure I've worked with this, had an opportunity to go over the meeting and talk to our folks at Lewis and various others. So I feel less like I have a lot of questions, but I do want to make a couple of comments. First of all, start my clock. Okay. I do want to thank my colleague, Ms. Dearnette Kofax. We have walked in the last year, asking lots of questions, trying to make sure that we laid groundwork that could not only benefit students at Lewis, and that's where we're starting, right? But I know that we just want to enhance the educational experience of our high schoolers for now. This is a beginning. And so I want to thank Ms. Dearnette Kofax for her partnership in that. I also want to thank the leadership of John Lewis High School. I tried really hard not to bug you guys, and that required a great amount of restraint on my part. So, but I am also very, very grateful for your willingness to have conversation. And, you know, I think together we have come to a place where we have a shared passion, and I'm grateful to walk with you guys through that. This is a conceptual model designed to include all students. I think the budget is rather low, according to my conversations, compared to other academies. So thank you for making that distinction, Dr. Presidio. In the last 10 years, I just want to clarify, we had Chantilly, Edison, and then this would be Lewis, I think is within that 10-year period. I don't want to be remiss, so you guys can start coming up here. The bipartisan leadership folks are here. I just want them to have an opportunity to say just a couple of words to you. I'm going to give them my mic, so I'm going to move. Okay, here you go. This is,
well, I
yeah,
see the clock running, so
don't
we
worry
do
about
not
that.
want to impinge on the clock. You're fine, really.
I'm good.
We
No,
just
you guys
wanted
sit
to
down and use
say
those mics.
publicly a thanks to Karen for involving us. This is not something that we sought. The Bipartisan Leadership Project is a volunteer nonprofit effort to try to educate and equip people who want to serve in public office, who are serving in public office, that they have the skills that actually Ms. Langwood was talking about earlier about conflict resolution and civility of communication. So what you folks have done here is fantastic. I could go around the table and compliment each one of you for your contributions. But what we did at Karen's direction was to put together a citizens group to think about, outside of the box, what could be possible recommendations that we could give to you folks. You have no obligation to take any of them, but I want to turn it over to Linda to just describe the working group a little bit. And it's been a fantastic opportunity for me. I was thinking a while ago that the last time I sat around a table like this was in the United States Senate with senators who did not behave themselves as well as you folks have here today. And so my compliments to all. And Linda Mathis has just been an incredible inspiration to this 74 people who came together. And so I'd like you to say something.
Bob, thank you. I mean, the inspiration is you, Myrene, and Rowan, and the other students at this school. That's what has inspired and fueled us. I'm struck that we'll know we've been successful when there's some students sitting right here at this microphone in the future leading the school board. Our hope is that through the kind of program, thank you for your level of excitement and enthusiasm about this leadership program. But because of that, one of the purposes is, in fact, to inspire young people to perform leadership roles in this community. And to someone who said this won't benefit the people in your community, I suggest to you this will benefit all of us, to have more young people prepared to be leaders, to know they can be and to become leaders, and to serve in all kinds of roles, public and private and nonprofit roles. We will all benefit from that. So it has been an honor. It has been of great passion for us to sit around a table and join you in thinking about what's possible. I'm at the level of excitement